organization, there are certain things that you need to take care of, and both Praveen and I can help in many different ways.
Thank you. Thanks for that. So, Praveen, we have a question from Umesh. Umesh Gautam says, when you said you start with a problem, right? That's how your research starts. How do you convert? Can you give examples of you converting a problem into a hypothesis? And then you actually manage to get a traditional academic grant for it?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, like if you identify the problem, that becomes easier because then you see, once you understand the problem, then oh, what we call like a due diligence you need to see, right? Like because today any problem you take, you're not the first one to think about it, that many
Probably
attempts
not.
across the globe might
Exactly.
have done. So, but like
Exactly.
knowing every aspect of it helps a lot to see what worked, what didn't work. And then that's where that one has to come up with the two approaches one can take. One is like, okay, these are the things can work, but I can develop another X, which is better than that. I can create that. Okay, so that is almost like I'll proven hypothesis is there, but you're coming up with a little better solution that what is existing. Or then if you understand this entire background, then you come up with an hypothesis which is a completely going with a different angle, which not been tried. Okay, of course, with a logical approach, why that new approach can work. So that becomes your hypothesis, right? So with a logical backing up, then you have hypothesis, and of course that hypothesis, in fact, having the great hypothesis is actually your first step for writing grants, because like having poor hypothesis saying that already things are there, I will make little better one, actually doesn't fetch the grants. Like, actually having a
Exactly.
completely new approach is the first step for the creating the grants. And once you have that, then that is also can lead to develop disruptive technologies, because people haven't thought about that angle. Of course, there is a high risk as well, which might not work, because when you're formulating an idea, if it's not been done, your first time trying to attempt, there could be two possibilities, right? One, people never thought about it, so you thought about new way to solve, or people might have tried, didn't work, thought about it, tried, but didn't work. So there are two possibilities are there. So that's the risk one has to take and try out and develop. So it's always the balance one had to create with that. But having that hypothesis is the first step to create the grants. And in fact, that is the only best way, I would say, getting the grants.
Getting it. Okay. The Bilal, are you able to unmute? Okay, Bilal is asking a question. Do you think we need to inculcate? Let him just complete the question and then I'll ask that to you.
Yeah,
But
let me ask this question now directly to Praveen.
please,
Especially, we wanted to
please.
say that as I'm from academia, so we are teaching students. So I wanted to know if we somehow will be able to inculcate such syllabi which has an industrial relevance and try to update that syllabus every time. Is that now the need of an hour that's the only way how we can impart basically industry into the academia at the very beginning level, no, rather than to basically think when we are scientists ourselves and then trying to do some translational research. Can you basically
Yeah, I absolutely agree with it, because the sooner it is then, okay, is the best. Because if somebody is not solving the problem, not that they can't, but it's like not aware of. As in the beginning, I was telling Karishma, like, my entire PhD and never was aware that actually we can develop technology in academia which can be solved in a real life problem. But if it is a form of a classroom or example, already known example, if I have been aware, then from day one, I would have thought about it. Okay, probably we can start thinking about it. That's a possibility is there. So keeping that is the systematically in curriculum, of course, definitely that would help. I think that would be a great addition to existing curriculum. I strongly encourage having one entrepreneurship and translational science as a curriculum for right from the beginning.
For PhD. Absolutely. And probably part of PhD coursework
even masters, why not? Right. So
exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So all right, we have a problem, you built a hypothesis, you get some seed funding and you get going. We also hear a lot of startups using the word pivot, They seem to be pivoting ever so often. What are outcomes that you should set? And if you're not achieving them, you just say this is not working. We need to do something else or disband altogether. So when do you pull the plug on either a project or a technology and say, look, this is not working. We need to think this through.
It is the same as we do for our laboratory research. We come up with hypothesis based on very thorough review of the literature and everything. And we are convinced that it will work, right? That's why we chase it. And sometimes it fails, right? And then we ditch it. Unfortunately, negative results are not very popular in the literature, which I think is a bad idea. But nonetheless, that happens. The same thing can happen with any translational ideas that you thought that it will be, particularly, if it is in the bio sector, pharma particularly, very, I will share a story, a very good story. My problem in life is I cannot remember any name. This is a very famous hematologist at Harvard. He observed, like many others, that when you resect a tumor, then soon after that, a lot of mini tumors form around it. So then he came to the hypothesis that there is something being secreted by the original tumor that prevents the other tumors to grow around it. To cut a long story short, he purified that activity from mouse urine. Okay. And he showed that in mouse, it works absolutely perfectly. Okay. You induce tumor in mouse and you treat with that, like it's called angiostatin, and it completely blocks metastatic tumor loci. Okay. But right after that, there was a New York Times article on him, and I still remember his quote there, that if you are a mouse, I can treat your cancer, no questions. If you are a human being, no such guarantees. And as it turned out that angiostatin did not work in humans. Okay, but it was a perfectly hypothesis to chase. Like Praveen and I are working together on the disease-modifying therapy for osteoarthritis. It stemmed purely from my basic science research on cartilage differentiation, etc. If any of you are there in NCBS, January 10th, I'll be talking about it. And we are going for the large animal trial. We have every reason to believe that it will work. But what are the things it will happen in vivo inside a human body is nobody's guess. So, for bio-related products, you really have to go the whole hog before you figure out whether you have to pull the plug on it or not. For many others, pivot is often issue of circumstances. There is one favorite company of mine. They were making robots to clean solar panels without water. Okay. Then the pandemic came and they realized that this product will not sell. So they went on to make ventilators. Okay. The idea being that the skill sets are the same. It is still electromechanical device requiring precise control. So that's a pivot. But, I wouldn't be too worried about the pivot. If you have identified the problem statement really well. See, I'll tell you the problem with academics. It is not your question, but I will volunteer few information. First is that we are quite confident that if I have thought of it as a problem, it must be a problem. But trust me, most often that is not the case. You will talk about that problem to an industry leader. They will say, oh, very good idea, but I think there are other ways of getting it done. Number one. Number two is that we take ourselves way too seriously. Like we tend to think that if I have discovered the whole process, how it works and everything, then if there is a company, I will be the primary owner of it. You know, like we tend to underestimate the hard work, ingenuity, dedication, etc., needed to take like what happens in the scientific lab is actually a proof of concept. To take a proof of concept to a product and to commercialize that product, it's uh, it's a very very long journey, and academics need to respect that. Like when I tell my colleagues that, very good, you have a good idea, let me set you up with a startup. You get 15% of the company, startup gets 85% of the company. They flip on me. But
At the 85%
yes, because
being
academics,
given to the other.
yeah, academics do not understand that 100% of zero is still zero. Okay. While 15%
Yes.
of 100 crore is a lot of money. So we need to appreciate that. And there is a third issue that bugs academics, and this is a very interesting story. I really want all the young colleagues to understand that. A very good friend of mine, a brilliant physicist, he identified a problem. Karishma, you will be quite familiar with it. It's called juvenile jaundice. So juvenile jaundice
Yes.
is treated with a light box, right?
Right.
Today, all the light boxes are imported. So this guy, physicist, really good. So he came up with a novel design and architecture of a light box made in India. I told him that, it's a very good product. Give it to me. I'll commercialize it. So
So you
Amitabh,
can put it in neonatal ICUs and things like that,
so
where
and
children need to be under the light.
yeah,
Yeah.
he immediately said, Amitabh, you only think about money. You forgot that you are a professor, etc., etc. I will sell it at the cost price. And he
Okay.
tried for 2-3 years. It just did not work because it is economically impossible. You cannot sell anything at cost price because a scientist like Praveen will not go door to door to talk about his product. So he will have to have a marketing team. Then
Absolutely.
once people get
Absolutely.
to know about the product, then someone will have to actually sell it. So there will be a sales team. So there are these overheads built into it that we need
Absolutely.
to understand. So
Even post-sale feedback
yes, all of these are
and even production or manufacturing at scale, right? We're not going to manufacture one box for every request that comes. You'll have to
and
mass produce it.
so the bottom line is, though, which is the most interesting one for academics to understand. So because of this philosophy, what actually happened? Who lost? Lost out at the parents and the kids who needed that device.
Absolutely.
So if
Absolutely.
we do not commercialize, commercialization is not a bad word. In our country, commercialization is looked at in a bad light. It is not a bad word. If you don't do it, there is no other way for you to take your discovery, innovation to the masses.
This is a great point, Amitabh, and actually it ties into one question I had for both of you. Praveen, you could take it. Does entrepreneurship um, is it at odds with the fundamental tenets of science, which is it should be free, it should be altruistic, we are not doing it for personal gain. Personal gain is also money, for example. Is it at odds with the fundamental tenets of science when we think, oh, the moment you have an idea, patent it, this is my claim over it, I will license it, investors will make the money, investors who may have nothing to do with the science, right? They just put
Yeah.
money at a very early stage. So is it at odds with the fundamental tenets?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. So, many times if we don't understand this entire pipeline, end-to-end pipeline, how it works, we tend to come up with different philosophies depend upon our own beliefs and all. For example, like, one can say it's a public money, you created a technology, it should be open to public, why you patent it? Like it should be free. That's like a patriotism, we can put it, nationalism, we can put it and say it should be open for it. But okay, that that doesn't apply for everything. For example, if your technology that completely matured. It is ready to use. Tomorrow we can just take that and someone can use that information and make something and readily available to use it, that's fine. But more often it's not, especially when you make the technology. What you develop is like, first proof of concept and discovery and innovation. And if you want to develop that as a viable product, which actually end user can use it, that entire developmental path is there, okay, which is 100x more costs it involves to bring them, right?
Mm.
So if you don't have, say for example, IP, and who is going to bear that development cost, that a private investors have to put the money to develop that further. So if they don't have the intellectual property protection, no one would able to put a single rupee invest that to develop further. In the retrospect, actually we are killing the technology because we're just keeping it open. By not protecting, actually we are killing it. So no one will able to bring that to the end user, right? So on the contrary, like when you say, and another also people come up with this affordable stuff, right? um, we tend to use that very prematurely, because most of them, I think Amitabh rightly said, this is your final cost is not your production cost. The moment we say, oh, I'm using cheap material, everything is cheap. Okay, that doesn't work because there are so many other costs included, like, right from development costs, all these overheads and everything. All your final price is depends on how much development path has that had. If you really want to make affordable one need to think a lot more creatively to how we can reduce this entire development path. Because, for example, if you take a drug, right, like, typically 1.5 billion dollars it goes into to develop one drug. But like, can you come up with the technology which can reduce that cost? Okay, so in that way we can make it more affordable, right? So that's why people have to think about, like, just keeping openly putting in the public, it doesn't serve the purpose. And in fact, like, if one has to make the decision, it's not about what that person or inventor wants, but rather one need to because we have often this dilemma once you develop the technology industry, or should I form the company, should I run it, or how we take it about, right? So
Mm.
I would
Yep.
say that is not the decision of the inventor or investor. That decision should be decided based on what is the best for that technology to come to the market. Okay, if that technology needs uh, just licensing, because there is already very existing manufacturing is there, everything pipeline is set up, you just plug in, it comes in 6 months, it comes to the market. I think that is the best way to go about it. uh, then inventor might not have a company, but for the what works for the what technology demands, you do that. We have to put
Yes.
everything upfront, what technology needs rather than what a person needs. So in
That's a
that way
great
we can
point,
make
which
it
is
much better.
ties into your example of your light bulb and neonatal jaundice, where the technology needed to be there, out there, right? So it's not an, yes, absolutely. It's what the technology merits. The decision should be made based on that. Bilal, Libert has a question in the chat window. Do you want to take
Yes,
it? Thank you, Libert, for your question. Nice
yeah, yeah,
question. We want to take that,
yeah,
Bilal?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll take. Yes, yes. Actually, Professor Libert Bryce Tonfak is from Cameroon. He is my friend. I have shared this link with him so that I thought that he will
Okay,
join.
great,
Hi, Libert.
great,
Fantastic.
great.
Yes, yes. Libert wants to know that industries need to go to researchers or the reverse. Whether
How does it
industries
work?
need to go to researchers or researchers need to go to industries for this translational research, and how these two partners can basically bridge the gap that basically is there existing right now. He
So,
wanted to basically know this.
Amitabha, you want to
So
add it?
in this,
Right.
yes, sure, I'll
basically,
do
he
that.
wants to know that whether industries need to go to researchers or researchers
Yeah.
need to go to industries to fulfill the needs of the society.
So, first of all, like if industry sees profit, they will go to wherever they need to go to. Okay. and they will go to researchers. Like very good example in India, it has not been happening in a large scale, but very good two examples recently. One particular company, Laurus Biolabs, they went to IIT Bombay for CAR T cell therapy by Dr. Purwar, and to IIT Kanpur to Dr. Jayandran for gene therapy. So, because Laurus thought that there is money to be made in this. Again, at least in Indian context, it is very true. Praveen knows it very well that Indian industries, for some reason, they are too cautious. Okay, they will not take a product till even if it is in TRL 8. Okay, they would like to get a product that they can commercialize yesterday. Okay, so taking a product, doing further R&D and commercializing it is not generally the way of work for Indian industry. But that's what how they are. Researchers, on the other hand, we are also kind of. I'll tell you the main problem that I found exists in India is that us academicians, we have a very low opinion of industry R&D. We think that they are doing some low-end job, and industry leaders, they think that academicians only care for grant money from them. And I can tell you with full confidence, because now I am interacting with a lot of industries. After this Laurus Lab investment, there is a FOMO among Indian biotech leaders. So they are reaching out to IIT Kanpur, and I am the interface. It is absolutely clear that industry has no idea what is going on in Indian academia, where there are some actual global leaders, where there are some very ripe technology. And similarly, we do not know. See, we might know from newspaper reports which industry is making profit, which is not. We do not know about their pipeline. We do not know what is their, philosophy of expanding their product line. So, what is desperately needed in the country is very good platform where these two genres of people interact on equal footing. Okay, and I want to emphasize, most academicians who does not agree with my philosophy, but I feel that before any collaboration begins, friendship must happen. And the only way for that to happen is frequent meeting between these two groups, so that they kind of get to know each other, build little, confidence in each other. Then things will happen. But for the time being, we are really living in two different universes.
Interesting.
Praveen sir?
So one way that yes, so go ahead, Bilal. I have another question of one way in which we could bridge these two universes. But Bilal, you go ahead. Yes.
Yes, actually, I like that Amitabh's answer, that because he being at Kanpur, he being at interface between the industry and the institution. That is what Bryce basically wanted to put it that way. And he's again telling that how do we need to have a trained ambassador scientist who can better pitch
That's
for
another
the
question from Liver.
because right now the young PIs, because the senior PIs, they do have an experience how to basically pitch for this grants or collaborations, or how to sell their translated products, because young PIs do have one problem, especially in the academia part, because this translational research or the research that can be basically patented, or it takes a time, because the concept driven sort. And for 5 years, for long 10 years, they will not get things done in a very in a shortest possible time. And by that time, their promotion is everything set up. So because they won't be promoted because there are certain issues also. So I think that this is the right way that like Amitabh is basically working in an innovation cell, and then he becomes an interface. Then young PIs can be basically promoted, or they can be basically have. But even if the trained PI can go to his own institutional young PIs and see what work they are doing, and what is the prospect that this work is going to bring, because sometimes young PIs don't know even they are doing some novel work. They do it because
So
they do it.
absolutely. So we're talking of like when you're saying bridging, one way to bridge is sharing manpower. Now, if you think of a Genentech, San Francisco based, they have full-fledged PhD programs. They have
Yes.
full-fledged postdoc programs. Do we even have an example, Praveen Amitabh, of an Indian biotech that has a PhD program or a postdoc program?
I don't
Not
think.
that I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right. So it's always like
So,
you start in academia and then learn and figure it out.
No, no, no. See, like Karishma, the
yeah.
fundamental difference is that Genentech and the pharma majors abroad, they
Mhm.
are innovator companies. They come up with new drugs.
Right,
While
right.
our pharma companies so far are
Mhm.
primarily process development companies. They take existing product and perfect optimize the process for marketing it at a very low cost. So therefore, they do not need the kind of manpower resources that Genentech would need. Like Genentech uh, sent to me a personalized email just because they know I work on BMP signaling pathway. They are looking for someone. They specific. So that is the kind of capabilities they have, and that is the kind of like urge they have. Like we are very far away from that.
Yes, absolutely. We couldn't
Yeah.
even name a example, right, Praveen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to add to your first point, whether industry should go to academic or academic people to go there, I think it's the need base. There is no thumb rule. One has only one way or other, right? Like, you see, as Amitabha mentioned, like if industry is looking or coming to academics, they have a very specific problem. Then they want a specific set of tasks should be done. That's how they come to academia, and like they look for the people like we have that skill set and they get it done. Right? That's how they collaborate. And but like for the academician, like uh, see like what you have, why you want to interact with industry. I think more often, like, one of the uh, this common mistake I would say, like I would see, is like more often just to have an interaction with the industry, like I want to have. Okay, that often leads very different path, very unproductive path. Okay, so if you're engaging with industry, right, like one need to see like exactly what you are looking for, at what stage you have the technology. Or like what help you need from the industry specifically. So one need to have that very clear path. So if you have that path, academician, they take the lead and go on, interact with industry. I think often if you don't have that clarity, then only like it becomes difficult. Okay, who will take the initiation? Because and when again both parties comes, right, I think there are multiple ways how you can engage with industry academia, right? Like there are like one path is like coming with completely co-developing new solutions, right? You have a common problem, we can work like industry brings their expertise, academicians bring their expertise, you co-develop, and joint IP, you develop the joint IP, share benefits, and so on. But more often that doesn't happen. Like you go even uh, as I just mentioned, like just you want to interact with the industry, you want to interact, you know it, that doesn't lead at all. And that's where like we very often see very polarized agreements. And for example, like one of another chronic system what we see is, as Amitabh just he mentioned about like how what industry thinks about academia, what academician thinks about industry, right? And it reflects when you come for an agreement. For example, somebody wants to license a technology from industry, from academia to industry, the kind of drafts we get, like when industry develop, it's a one-sided. They think that they have no academic institutes, they have no idea about this licensing term, so they make it completely polarized. And when the industry does this, institutes, academic institute does that, like they are very protective, like they kept so much hurdles that you can't even license them. And both of them are wrong, right? Like because any agreement, it has to be win-win, and both parties should know that, like what already been contributed, who contributed, and what is lacking, that part, who is going to fill that void. right? So based on that, this has to be like, shared, and that should be a fair amount of, because by the time like you go to any industry, you ask them like, hey, we have to license this. Oh, engaging with institutes takes long time. It is a very difficult, cumbersome process and all. I think this concept, like, it takes long time to, overcome these opinions. But one has to look for, I think that's where both partners, I think that other partner knows equally well and respect that, and like come up with a win-win situation, and which is absolutely possible. It's not the impossible task at all. One can always end up with a win-win situation, but like one has to go with that open-mindedness. I think if one keeps that in mind, we will have a lot more productive collaborations between both industry and academia.
Yeah, I mean, like we do with inter-academic collaborations. It's just like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So, Praveen, and Amitabh, now talking a bit of nitty-gritty, many young investigators here will be told that if you want to do anything in industry in India, biotech industry, go for big. Start with big, the biotechnology ignition grant from BIRAC.
yeah,
Okay, that's some money, good money. It gets you going. And the next step will be SIBRI,
Mhm.
the next step to big.
Yeah.
But are we observing that a lot of biotech startup entrepreneurs or ideas get stuck in the SIBRI stage? What happens after SIBRI? How do you go towards private investors, other investors,
Yeah.
investment hedge funds, or those investment funds? How do you get beyond SIBRI? Because SIBRI and big are still grants finally.
Yeah. So two different discussions. One is for pharma. There, this money will not even come in the picture. It's not even peanuts. Okay. So most of the grants that are disbursed, because I am quite intimately involved with BIG, would be in medical devices and some in biotechnology products. Like I think Praveen's one on the pesticide was a BIG funded project, right, Praveen?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I'll tell you the problem. In fact, just to let you know that I am a member of the National Startup Advisory Council, and there is a meeting on 19th. And today I got a note that there is a funding winter, and what are the problems and what can be solution. So one obvious problem, particularly for medical devices and most bio-related stuff, is that any medical device to bring to the market, you need a license from an organization called CDSCO as it stands now. Now, getting a license from CDSCO is just as simple or complex as getting your driver's license done in any of the motor vehicles office. You just don't know what to do. Okay, you pay someone and you get your license. In CDSCO, unfortunately, even that does not work. It is very, very convoluted and non-transparent. As a result, what happens is that once you have, see, like any investor, whether it is a bank or an angel investor or a VC, would look at return of investment and in a timely manner. Now, nobody would want to fund you for while you are waiting to get your license. Okay. So those are few years gone just like that. So therefore, many of our projects are getting stuck at the SIBRI stage because nobody is willing to fund for the manufacturing stage, which is a much larger funding that will only come from private investors, like angels and VCs. So unless we clear that regulatory process altogether, and I am very actively working on that part with the government, not that they're listening, but at least I am pushing. So, so that is the problem.
Away at it. That's how we
So,
got.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Yes.
I have little different opinion and a different angle to add to it. While like BIG and SIBRI, they're phenomenal grants. I think they actually catalyzed a lot of innovation. In fact, I think that has contributed a lot more to the spur of our biotechnology industry. So, period that. But for the academic entrepreneurs, my suggestion is like, BIG, SIBRI, all these mechanisms, they are like an additives. Okay. They would be your secondary funding mechanism you should consider. Okay. And if just because you got a BIG grant and you want to form a company and sustain on only grants, uh, that is not a viable solution for long. Okay, one need to form the company only when you can raise private money. Absolutely, because that is the money will give you faster growth speed. Okay, and also, but raising a single rupee from a private investor, it's hard because you need to convince them that this is actually technology. It's going to solve. It's going to give you the return. That's the biggest challenge, right? But if you don't have a technology to give instill that confidence, I don't think it's just because we get the free money from BIG and all, don't go for it, because
Right.
then we end up with the cycle because they come with the time bound, right? You are always in a rush to this that. And there are two things like why people most of the times we tend to do is because all this BIG, SIBRI, this grant money, these are non-dilutive money, meaning like you raise the money, you will get it, like, but you don't have to give up your company a piece of. But private money, other, like every rupee you raise, like you have to give a piece of your company. All right, but that's the trade-off one need to have, because as rightly you mentioned, 100% zero is zero, right? Like unless you have to build a company, then no point like how much equity you own it. So that's why my strong advice for any entrepreneur or academic entrepreneur and all, don't rely on only non-dilutive money and go for the companies. Yeah, so you need to, in fact, I would say, other than your seasonal entrepreneurs, academic entrepreneurs have a lot more advantage, because you can do all your research, do entire technology development with a grants or lab.
In
So
an academic lab,
develop as much mature technology as possible, develop, cover that entire intellectual property and file it, right? Then you have to, because when to form the company comes biggest question, right? When is the right time? So you need to go for the company only like you have sorted out all this, like after that is a fine tuning, little further development and going ahead. So where you have the complete mature story that you can pitch to someone and raise the money. If you don't have that confidence day one, you're not there yet to start the company. So that's the timing one need to critically understand and do that.
Yeah, like
this
Praveen,
is a great point. You can
I
put it in academia. Yes,
agree
ma'am.
with you, but at the same time, colleagues need to understand what it means for an academic to start the company. Like, I do not know how much of day-to-day company running you were involved with, but I know a couple of my colleagues who are involved, and they had to literally take sabbatical. Okay,
Yes.
my
So coming, yeah.
my
That's, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
advice would be that first of all, in our jobs, we are by law not allowed to be the executive directors, meaning we can only own the company, not run the company. As per our contracts, we are 24/7 employees of our organizations. I would strongly urge that if you have developed a good technology, tie up with a startup, uh, give the startup its due. And like, there are ways and means that we can get into a deeper discussion by which you can protect your rights and everything while experimenting with the startup. Because I'll tell you that IIT Kanpur has is proud to have developed two technologies at a very rapid pace. In all the cases, what we have done, and this is all my doing, is that we married a group of faculty members with a very agile and competent startup, and faculty members would typically spend an hour or two in a week, because our bandwidths are limited, while the startup does all the running around. And both the parties know from the get go that who has what in it. Okay, so I would really think that if faculty members, after developing the technology, forms the company, becomes a founder member, but remains a mentor to the actual business team on the technical side, that is perhaps more workable than trying to run the own company, unless you decide to take sabbatical or you leave. Like Rahul Purwar has actually left his job. Okay. Why
So there's a
Giant
question.
decided not to do that.
So that ties in nicely with the question Sachin asked, that why is it in drug development industry in Switzerland pay a handsome salary? And my funny answer to that is because labor laws in EU require you to pay a minimum salary to your employees, and there's no other way to go about it. But for academic scientists who are obviously going to consider financial stability and salaries when they transition to entrepreneurship, you could be in an academic research job as long as you build out your technology, and then only when you absolutely need to quit the job, you can move completely, either sabbatical mode where you don't draw a salary, or then full time where your startup starts to pay you through shares of profits, or I guess then you wait for some event to happen like an IPO or a being bought out or something like that. But academic scientists, scientist entrepreneurs have that advantage versus tech entrepreneurs who probably don't have an academic job. Straight out of engineering college, they're in the deep end.
Yeah.
A PhD
Yeah,
scientist
so
can have that.
yeah, just to add that, I think it's a more than practical reasons. I think one need to know exactly what they want to do. Like, so for example, like, if I take my example, like once I formed my first company, like, there is always a chance, like whether I want to full time go to the company and develop and like, make sure that it's triumphs, right? So my call was, I made a decision not to go to this one and be there in the lab. So the reason is, once you move to the company, then your 100% focus is on only that company. Meaning, like, because that company will have one set of technology, you have to give your 100% to do that. I get bored. So I want to develop like 10 different technologies, right? So which is being in full time, if I move to the industry, that is not possible, because then I'll be doing injustice to the company as well. So that's why, like, what we tend to do is like we find the partners like who can do the day-to-day operations. Okay, so we co-found with them and transfer the technology. But whatever is said and done, but the technology, since we develop that, we know in and out. That's like, every nitty-gritties we know. So still we oversee the technology development and contribute to overall vision of the company as it goes. But day-to-day running job and like all the operations can be done your other team, and who can be the executive directors. So that gives us freedom to, like, one, we develop these companies, but at the same time we can develop much more diverse technologies for that. So that's my personal. So that's where one need to. But like there are like fantastic people like who started developed the technology, started the company. They completely moved to the company and they built it so well. So that's why there is no right or wrong answer. It's about like having that honest conversation with ourselves to see what is the best thing to do, what you like every single day in a long run. So I think once you have that clarity, and there are every possible mechanism, very flexible mechanisms available to do whichever way you want to do. So, but getting that clarity is a lot more important.
That's great to hear. I mean, and I think we leave this webinar with the idea there are a lot of options when it comes to entrepreneurship. There are a lot of modes in which you can engage, starting with license or transfer or jump ship or stay in academia working on multiple technologies. So, like Sachin, your question, there's no right answer to whether you should bootstrap or postdoc or have one foot in each boat. It's what you want to do. So we will start wrapping up, Arushi, on that note. we will move to the segment of giving. Thank you. Please give us your feedback. And Arushi, do you want to share some slides and wrap up before we say thank you to
No,
everyone?
just a reminder that our next Wire Huddle is again going to be on the 24th of Jan. And again, it is going to be an exciting one because it is going to again focus on academia and clinical collaborations. So just stay tuned on our website and social media so that you don't miss out on registrations. And thank you once again, Amitabha and Praveen, and Bilal and Karishma. For moderating the session and giving us very nice inputs. I personally learned a lot today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Bilal,
Thank you
Praveen,
for
Amitabh.
this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karishma, Amitabh sir, Praveen sir. Thank you.
And thank you, IndiaBioscience team, for all the back-end support. And thank you, Arushi, for leading this.
Yeah.
So we'll be back
Okay.
with more conversations.
Yes.
Have a good
Yes.
day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Fantastic. Bye. Bye.